Welcome to Board Gems. In this video, I'll be showing you pictures, with my lovely commentary, on the same Reiner Knizia game put out by an English publisher and a German publisher. The English edition is Zombiegeddon from Twilight Creations 2009, and the German edition Jäger und Sammler, or Hunters and Gatherers, from Amigo in 2010. Of course, everything from Twilight Creations is zombie or at least death related. Although the game is named Zombiegeddon, I mean, this guy has tentacles, this old lady has tarantula legs. I mean, that's not normal for zombies, is it? To become like mutant animals? I don't know, just go with it. Anyway, the Amigo edition is more family oriented. You'll see it says Familienspiel in the corner, and that age range 10 plus. I feel like that's a little bit of an exaggeration. I think 8 and ups can play, but it's kind of borderline. You'll get a hint here from the backs of the boxes what the board in Zombiegeddon looks like. We joke about old German games having beige boards. Look, it doesn't get more beige than that, don't it? I don't know about the German blurb, but the English blurb I like because it mentions Zombiegeddon is a fast-paced, perfect information strategy game, which is true, and I'm glad that they pointed out. It still has a casual feel to the game because the discs that populate the board come out randomly. But once those discs come out, then it's perfect information for everyone. Zombiegeddon's box is very skinny. You can almost always find room on your shelf for a Zombiegeddon. In fact, if you have a Kallax and you have kind of 4 standard Ticket to Ride size boxes, which Jäger and Sammler is that standard square Ticket to Ride size box, then you can easily fit Zombiegeddon in the crack remaining in that typical Kallax cube. For Twilight Creations games, the presentations can be a little bit austere. They have, some half-decent art, and certainly if you play their, I think, most popular game, Zombies, it comes with a bunch of zombie plastic miniatures, don't it? But this is just a lot of simple cardboard with a solid color on one side and some art on the other, and, which you'll see later, some just very generic plastic pawns. You'll see a nice custom plastic insert which separates the two groups of discs, because there's summer discs and there's winter discs, or in the case of Zombiegeddon it's pre-bomb and post-bomb. Oh, that's why they're mutants. Right, okay. So I guess the theme is that it's zombies and then governments or whatever decide to nuke everything, and then there are mutants afterwards. I guess that's how they explain it. Anyway, the plastic insert sorts the discs quite well. The Zombiegeddon rulebook is 4 pages, no real examples. The graphics on the back are a little bit hard to make out because it's black and white. Not sure how worthwhile it is to show you the Jäger und Sammler German rules. For what they're worth, they're square and they're kind of that trifold thing, so a bit awkward to read. Not that I read it anyway, I use the English translation, and the English translation is fine. No comments or complaints. Here are the boards. They're the same number of hexes, but different sized boards. You'll see Zombiegeddon's is narrower in one dimension and longer in the other, whereas Jäger and Sammler's board is a little bit more squarish. It would seem to me that Zombiegeddon's board would be a little bit more challenging. I actually haven't played Zombiegeddon. Those hexes that are pre-printed on the board are shelters. I guess they're shelters in both, just bomb shelters versus camps for your tribe. And there's different camps, different shelters for summer and winter, or pre-bomb and post-bomb. And the post-bomb winter ones you'll see in Zombiegeddon are on the edge of the board, would make it potentially a little bit more challenging, I would say. But one's not better or worse, they're just different. Here are the pawns and the supply markers. So Zombiegeddon's pawns are very generic plastic. I'm not one to complain about that. They're iconic as long as you can tell the colors apart, and I think these colors differentiate each other fairly well. I'm not colorblind. Jäger and Sammler's colors are even better for the colorblind because there's no blue-yellow pair and there's no red-green pair. The things in the foreground are supply markers that are basically used to mark on the board when you've brought somebody back to a camp. Cubes make a lot of sense. They're small, they're easy to have multiple. These discs in Zombiegeddon don't really make a lot of sense. I wish they had figured out some other way to do it. Even smaller discs would have been okay, because these are the same size discs as the ones that fill up the hex space. So when you're putting these discs on the shelter, you kind of have to stack them, at which point you can't see all the ones that are there, or you spread them out slightly, but then they overlap the neighboring hexes. Not ideal. These last 2 photos show the different tiles that will be placed on the board. First in this photo are the summer tiles, or pre-bomb tiles. All tiles are equivalent in terms of like distribution, so same number of ones. You know, the supply tiles are the same as the berries and tubers you might gather in Jäger and Sammler. Little nice effect where the 1, 2s, and 3s, you know, represent different size stashes of canned goods. You're able to move across the board using these sewer/cave tiles. They serve the same purpose, and visually either works fine. But this, I want to really focus on this, because this is the one rules difference between Zombiegeddon and Jäger and Sammler. These are equivalent tiles, the barricade, and I actually forget what they call it in Jäger and Sammler, but anyway, it's like just plain rock. You don't pick up these tiles, they stay on the board. The barricades prevent movement onto them, whereas these rock tiles actually allow free movement onto them. Quite a different feel. Someone from Amigo pointed that them and Twilight Creations just worked off the same Reiner Knizia prototype, and they believed that the original intention of Reiner Knizia was that these were open, and Twilight Creations just did that, you know, for thematic purposes. You know, barricades make sense. It would certainly be easy to try the barricade way using these rock tiles from Jäger and Sammler. You can just say, oh, this is a giant rock that blocks your movement. Can't walk through a rock. And finally, the winter tiles. Of course, they're very clearly winter with a snowy, icy background in Jäger and Sammler, and they're post-bomb. So now you can see instead of zombies, they're mutants. There's a tentacle guy. So, yep, there's mutants afoot post-bomb. This is where I want to mention that the color scheme shared among pretty much all the tiles in Zombiegeddon really does it a disservice. So there's a 3 here, which is a 3 of goods, you know, stash, food. And then there's a 3 here, which is a zombie/mutant tile that you can hunt. I actually, before I say more, I just want to say that thematically the hunter and gatherers thing works a lot better for me. Why do you get points for killing zombies? There's always more zombies coming. Your goal is to survive, to hide from the zombies. You shouldn't, you know, run around and kill zombies for points. Anyway, on the board, these 2 tiles look pretty similar, right? They both have 3 in the same place. They both have a color scheme that is very similar, lots of, you know, browns and oranges. And of course, these discs are going to be oriented every which way on the board. They're not all going to be facing the same way. So it takes a moment visually to, you know, not necessarily long, but it's just a little bit of extra effort for your eyes and brain to differentiate between these 2 tiles, and it's not necessary. Yeah, look, it's not the end of the world. It just takes, you know, an extra second for your brain to process, and not necessary, right? That's my take. That's all. Simple and quick one this time. This is not that old a game, but anyway, doesn't stop being good because newer games come out. Still a good one. All right, take care.